Hey, ChairLife listeners, Chair World is just around the corner. February 1st, 2026, and I'm teaching two sessions this year. The first one, How to Find the Intersection Between Your Purpose and Practice, is Monday, February 2nd at 1:30 Pacific time. I really hope to see you there. The second session will be on Tuesday at 8:30 a.m., and it is called Best Practices to Optimize Your Time and Income to Build Your Ideal Practice. I hope you will register for these sessions now. Space is going to be limited. I'm really excited to see you. We've added in a lot of new information this year, and it's going to be great. So we'll see you at Chair World.
Welcome to the ChairLife podcast with Tom Cuthbert. As a CEO coach and master chair, Tom brings you the insights, strategies, and tools to help you build your chair life, where mission and purpose intersect with a balanced work life. This is the path to leading with impact while living with intention. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Tom Cuthbert.
Aristotle once said, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Boy, is that true in our Vistage groups. As we look across our groups, there is no one individual member, no one person in the group, not even one chair that makes the group fantastic. It is the collection of the group. And so today, our last in our entire series of all 12 high-performing behaviors, we're going to focus on one that I might argue could be the most important one. And it is that high-performing members make the group better. Legendary groups are the ones where the members own the culture, not you as the chair. And so as we get to the end of this, I really want us to think about our groups and self-assess and have the groups self-assess. How do we make ourselves stronger? The group is always owned by the members and not the chair, and that's something that I had to learn early in my practice. I remember I would always, in the beginning, try to do everything for them, and I would give them slack and cut them breaks, and just really not push them, not make them make the decisions to own the group. And it's been such a difference. It's when I've made that switch. Now that members own the group, it really is a living organism. And even when there's member change, as there always will be over time, the group tends to regrow and rework together. And our job is to facilitate that, to help select those that sit around the table. But at the end of the day, it's their group. So how do we do this? What is our role as a chair in really helping them own the group? And how do we get members to buy into this? Well, that's the first thing I want to touch on today. I want to talk about our role as we go through this behavior and really first start with, what do we do? How do we make this happen? The first thing is we try to facilitate brilliantly. The best facilitators are invisible. And when we are in control of a group, when we're managing issue processing, when we're getting them to check in, when they're giving feedback to others, our job is to be invisible in that. It's to draw out of the group their thoughts, their ideas, and their suggestions to each other. It's not to lead the witness or to throw in our own ideas. Sure, sometimes we're going to do that, but for the most part, I like to think of myself as being invisible. I don't even want them to realize I'm in the room and controlling things. That's the first thing, is for them to feel that those issue processing moments, those special moments in the group, are because of the group, not because of the chair. Secondly, we need to coach the individuals. We need to, in our one-to-ones, give confrontation. We need to push them from an accountability standpoint. We need to challenge them to speak up and push them when they speak up too much. We can't have that either. We need to remind them that they are a contributor in the group. And like any team, it has to have every player playing their part. The title I gave to this episode is Stop Trying to Carry the Piano. The music is theirs to make. And indeed it is. And in my first few years, I put the piano of the group on my back and tried to lug that thing around. It just didn't work. And as now I've let go, the music that comes out of the group is extraordinary. They need to hear that they own it consistently. There's a couple other things that we can do. We can book killer speakers, speakers that push and challenge them, speakers that draw the best out of them, speakers that won't take no for an answer when they're trying to avoid a hard question, speakers that get them out of their comfort zone. And again, gives us an opportunity to be invisible as they draw value from them. Two other big things as I give you some thoughts on this. One is your job and my job is to make sure the people that are sitting around the table are high performers. I give every single member candidate my try to get lost speech, as Bob Dabbick, I think, is how he would say it. I try to run them off, and I do so by giving them my little high performing behavior pamphlet. And I go through the high performing behaviors with them. And I tell them that you should look at yourself and consider, are these things that I can bring to a group? Am I committed to attendance? Am I committed to invest in others in addition to just myself? Am I committed to making the group stronger? Am I committed to one-to-ones? All of these things that we've been going through for weeks push those people to make sure that they commit to that. And you know what? If they don't bring them in your group. Secondly, I tell them, I want you to know every person sitting in that room, I've had this same conversation with. I am there and the group is there to help each other achieve more than we imagined possible. And so our job as a chair is to guard that time, to make sure that our member selection playbook is followed. And we're going through whatever process it is that you have, and I can share mine with you. Whatever process you have, make sure you follow it. Don't let people in who are going to disrupt the group and get it off track. My process is outlined at tomcuthbert.com/member selection playbook, and I follow it with every member with no exceptions. And sure, once in a while somebody gets in that, after a year or two, it's clear they're really not who I thought they were. And that's okay. That's going to happen. But if you have a group of 12 or 14 or 16 or 18 high performers that feel like they own the group, those groups will be high performing. Last thing I'll tell you on this part is get the hell out of the way. Let the members handle issues. Guide them, but push it back into their court. Get the monkey off your back and put it squarely on theirs. So what's the members' role in this? Well, I think it's to ask some questions of themselves. They can ask these questions. Where can I learn and grow today? How can I help someone else? What can I take out of this and apply it into my life and into my work? They should be asking others, both in group meetings and in accountability teams, where can I help you? What do you need from me to learn and grow? Or how can I help you walk through something that I've been through? When they do that, when they get together between meetings, when they talk about the group, when they talk about other members, when they call out mediocrity, when they celebrate wins, when they champion and help onboard new members as they come in, when they own the group is powerful. My strongest groups run with high attendance. My strongest groups run with not missing one-to-ones. My strongest groups produce a large number of referrals every year. And when a seat opens up, they take the initiative to get it filled before I even have a chance to think about it. My strongest groups achieve more than others. My strongest groups work together and know each other at a personal level. My strongest members meet on their own consistently, and they always know what's happening in each other's lives. Now, this does not take a snap of a finger. This takes time. There's no question that it really takes time for these people to get to know each other. But our job is to facilitate that and really push them to lean in with each other to do so. A few other things that transfer ownership from you to them. I remind them, I'm just the facilitator here. This is your group. We put members' names, goals on the agenda. We lean in heavily for host presentations. We let them own those presentations. We have ambassador programs where we're getting feedback from members. I involve them in that. I involve them in member selection as we go through that process. We do a mid-year and an end-of-year review on the group. We had Leo Batari speak to us earlier this year for two of my groups, and that exercise was very powerful. I highly recommend his Care Innovation book and his program. I have him coming again to one of my CEO groups next year, because self-reflecting on a group and pushing members to really look inward at how are we doing and how do we get better will absolutely result in them being better. So as we wrap up these 12 high-performing behaviors, I hope that you'll find that they've been helpful. I challenge you to look at your own groups, but more importantly, let your groups look at themselves. Lead them to be high-performing members in high-performing groups. And guess what? That makes you a high-performing chair. And that, my friends, is how we create something extraordinary.
Now it's time for Tom's tips and tricks to optimize your productivity and your chair life.
I'd like to use the tips and tricks section today to tell you a story. It's about one of my members, a young guy that has had great success. He's been in for 6, maybe 7 years now, building a fantastic company here in San Antonio. More than tripled or quadrupled their revenue over this time. Huge gains in margin and growth. Really impressive guy. And he came to me in a one-to-one with an idea of buying another business that was loosely but really disassociated from the business that he was. And I just want to tell you the story of how one question that we asked helped him see things completely differently. Let me start with a quote. Michael Bungay Stainer says in the book, The Coaching Habit, a little more asking and a little less telling can change everything. You know, I see our job as a chair, not as tellers, but as askers. I was driving up in New England recently on a trip there, and it was a very foggy morning on a winding road in an unfamiliar part of the country for me. And so navigating this on an early foggy morning as the sun had still not fully come up yet, I could barely see 20 feet in front of me. My headlights were on full, but the fog was overwhelming to me. And yet I made it. I navigated the fog without seeing very far in front of me. And you know, that analogy, that driving in thick fog, kind of reminds me of this situation. Without a chair, without these questions, without his group, without people around him to challenge him, he might have made it through. He might have come to the right decision. But lifting the fog is what we can do as a chair when we ask the right question. So he came to me and he talked in our one-to-one. We spent the entire time on this one topic. And I just asked questions. Tell me about the business. Tell me about how this would affect you. Tell me about what it would do to your team, your focus, your time, your income, your profit. Tell me about how your family feels about this. What do you give up to do this? And he kept talking and talking and talking. And finally, about 5 minutes before we wrapped up, I asked him the following question. Are you trying to talk yourself into this or out of this? He stopped talking. He got up and stared out the window. He thought and said nothing for a couple of minutes. And we wrapped up our conversation that day. No decision was made in the moment, but I knew that the fog had lifted. He came back and I saw him 2 days later in our group meeting. And I asked him, where are you on that? He said, I'm going to pass. I said, how did you make that decision? He said, it was that one question. I found myself talking myself into that. Now, that's a great question that I've learned from many of you and other coaches and books and resources and training. But that one question made such a difference in his life, in his trajectory, that it was really impactful for him. As coaches, we need to listen to when we hear someone talking themselves into something or out of something. We need to be watching the body language, and we need to force them to say things out loud. This is so valuable to them. It's headlights to cut through the fog, but that doesn't clear it and lift it up. The powerful questions that we can ask can lift the fog. We can justify anything in our heads. We can talk ourselves into anything, and I'm as guilty as the next person. But that's why we need some disfluency in our lives. We need someone to break the patterns of our own optimism, to challenge our thinking, to question our answers. That's the job of a Vistage chair. That's the job of a CEO coach. I can't tell you the number of times I've heard a member say something, and as they say it out loud, they stop, and I won't say anything. Sometimes I'll repeat what they said, and I'll just let them hear it. But saying things out loud, pausing them to do so by asking powerful questions, gets them thinking differently than they were before. It lifts that fog. A little cognitive dissonance kicks in, and it moves them in a better direction. There's a Harvard study from 2012 that said when people verbalize their own reasoning, they catch their flaws 25% faster, meaning they make better decisions. That's why there's magic in our one-to-ones. It's not because of our brilliance or experience. It's not because of my industry knowledge or the fact that I've been doing this forever. It's that we ask a question that clears the fog. As chairs, we're not consultants. People ask me all the time, "Oh, are you a business consultant?" No, I'm not. I'm a coach. There's a big difference. Consultants will tell you what they think the answer is. I'm only going to ask you a question so that you can figure out what the answer is. I'm not here to give my expertise, and quite honestly, with all due respect, neither are you. Well-timed questions will force them to be honest with themselves, and that can be our advice almost every single time. There's a million great questions, and I love questions. I love to collect them. Some other ones that I've asked include, if this were your best friend in this situation, what question would you be asking them? 6 months from now, are you going to be glad you did this? What part about this is most exciting to you? And then I'll immediately follow up with, and what are you dreading the most? If the headline risk showed up tomorrow, how would you feel? Because there's risk in every situation. So the next time you're in a one-to-one, the next time you're being a chair anywhere, ask those powerful questions that lift the fog, look for silence. And like you, we know we're doing a good job when somebody says to us, "You know what? That's a great question." So let's ask great questions. Let's help them lift the fog. Let's guide them to navigate the murkiness of business and life. I think in a nutshell, that is what we do.
Thanks for listening to the ChairLife podcast. Remember, you can find more resources at tomcuthbert.com. Please let others know about our podcast by sending them to chairlifepodcast.com. See you next time on the ChairLife podcast.